What's cracking with you people? This is the Devious Wolf here, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. This is going to be a fairly recurring series, depending on how this one goes and how I feel about doing this series. This is not so much of a let's play as much as me just running my mouth. So, if you're not down for that, if you're not down for that, you can skip this video outright. I'm not going to blame you for everything. But if you do want to stick around and listen, feel free. This is going to be one of those things where I'm more than likely going to be interacting with the members of the community that want to hear it, that want to sit around and listen and have a debate and respond to this. You know, maybe in a case of maybe refuting some of the things I have to say, or having a discussion based upon the things I have to say. I would very much appreciate that, actually. It would be very worthwhile to see. So, without further ado, let's get things started. Now, as you may have noticed, I am playing this in... I am doing this series, this particular video in the Dead or Alive fighting game series. We'll get to that in a second. We'll get to the main reason why in a second, but the easy reason, the one that's like easier for me to straight up outright say, yeah, this is the main reason why I'm doing it, is essentially because it has a spectator mode and makes it just a little bit easier for me to actually do this one. Oh wow, I've never seen that one before. So I like to use it in that respect, you know. I like to use it in what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to use it so that way I can focus more on rambling and not sound like an incoherent nut, which is very easy to do, all things considered. Like really easy to do for this particular format. If I bring the series back, or if I decide to keep on going with it, I am more than likely going to try to clean it up, snap it together, you know, make it a little bit more professional, so that way it's not grating on the ears for anyone to just sit down and pop on and listen to. But this particular one, I'm just kind of trying things out. So, that being said, and now that I ran my mouth for just a couple of minutes just talking about the series in and of itself, let's get down to the main thing. I'm new to here. I am new to YouTube, in the sense that I'm new to creating content for YouTube. I am new to putting out videos for YouTube, at least at the time of this recording. If people come back, if people are viewing this years down the line, hey, at least you get to see where I came from. If I faded away into obscurity, you at least know why. And if I end up doing moderately well, you can come back to this video and go, how the heck did he pull that off? You know? Because I'm going to assume that this is not going to be a very popular channel starting off the bat. I mean, pretty much if you're going to, first off, if you have any ideas of going into this particular genre of entertainment with regards to YouTube, first off, good luck, man, or girl, you know, I'm not going to discriminate. You just got to remember two very important things. Three important things. One, you just gotta do it. You know, if you're able to do it, if you are in a position where you can currently do it, I recommend going ahead and trying to get a head start on it, at least at the current moment. Second, always improve. Always try your best to improve. You know, my motto on the words, how do they work? My motto on the channel, words, how do they freaking work? But yeah, my motto on this channel, or at least just my motto in life when it comes to performance and just creative aspect of life in general, is that If people are going to take time out of their day to view what it is you have to offer or what it is you put out, you better make damn certain it's worth viewing. That's the bottom line. So as such, I'm going to be looking for constructive criticism, but at the same time, I'm also going to be taking the preemptive and double checking stuff. And the very third thing for anyone who is starting this up, and it's just kind of something I feel like I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer. So, but hey, you never know. Sometimes it's the things that are just no-brainers that people need to be reminded of a lot, and that would be just take your time with it. Just take your time with it. You know, if you don't get like the immediate recognition you want, that's fine. You know, you just keep at it, and maybe it will come, maybe it won't. You never know, but you gotta just stick with it and be patient. You know, so long as you are constantly improving and constantly putting out content, you should be fine. Okay, now that being said, the main point of this series, which I believe at the time of this I have decided on naming it "Let Me Tell You Something." I know, right? Very original name though. But that being said, it's mostly just my way of bringing up topics and trying to interact with you guys on a more personal level, I guess. Because, you know, the Let's Plays are going to be Let's Plays. People are going to bring up certain things inside the comments. I'm not certain what they're going to bring up yet because, hey, I'm just starting out. But I assume it's probably going to be along the lines of, hey, you need to check this when recording or be mindful of this. Or here's a little bit of trivia you might not have known about this particular game you're working with. You know, that kind of stuff. That's kind of a baseline what I'm expecting. This one is more of, I want to bring up things, and I expect people to respond on a more personal level. Maybe not formal, but definitely a personal level. And in the end, it's pretty much going to just boil down to I talk, you talk, we listen to each other, and we just kind of discuss things. Now, that isn't going to necessarily, one main thing you're probably going to notice as this goes on is that I talk very, very fast, and sometimes I talk very, very low. So I'm going to try my best to ramp up the volume I usually use in my voice without having to naturally enhance the decibel levels on the audio recording. Yes, I'm testing the audio here, so this is going to be very, very, very behind the scenes at this point in the game. But at the same time, I'm going to try to slow down my speech. So we will see how that goes. Yeah. What was I talking about again? Oh my goodness, this happens all the time. I get on a tangent and I completely forget what I was talking about. Talking to you guys interpersonally. Yeah, this is, like, for instance, I'm going to be talking about Dead or Alive right now. Like 9 times out of 10, you can kind of gauge the topic that I'm going to be discussing in these videos just by the game that's on screen at the moment. And at the moment, I'm going to do Dead or Alive. You might be wondering, why do Dead or Alive and not Sonic Adventure, the current Let's Play on the channel at the time of this recording? That's because I'm already going to be talking a lot about Sonic Adventure, and I want to avoid redundancy, so I feel like using a completely different genre with a completely different game developer with a completely different aesthetic style and completely different focus in terms of a product would definitely help that out a bit. So that's what we're doing right now. So yeah, if you're curious about like what I might be talking about as a main focus, you can kind of just glance at the game being presented and you can go from there. Now that I got that little bit of nonsense out the way, let's actually get into the meat and potatoes. I'm actually kind of hungry now. Let's actually get to the meat and potatoes of this video. Dead or Alive. Dead or Alive, for me anyway, is my favorite fighting game series. It just is. It's and it's my favorite fighting game series for a number of reasons. One of which is essentially that it's easy to pick up and play. That's pretty much it. It is easy to pick up and play. Now, and I came to this conclusion because I've played a number of fighting games growing up. I played Street Fighter. I remember very vividly playing Street Fighter. I want to say 2 at some point. I want to say, yeah, it was Street Fighter 2, and it was in the arcade because I don't think we ever had a home console version of it. I remember playing Killer Instinct as well. I also remember playing Mortal Kombat, and I was about 5 at that time, 4 or 5. You really don't need to be playing Mortal Kombat at 4 or 5. However, I was so bad at the game that the actual controversial stuff never came up, so I guess it didn't really matter. Then again, I don't know how well that is, considering like between the ages of 6 and 9, I played Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. So take that how you will. But yeah, I remember Dead or Alive vividly. More specifically, Dead or Alive 2, and if you want to get even more specific than that, it was Dead or Alive 2 on the Sega Dreamcast as a demo on a demo disc. Now, on this demo disc, now I remember specifically, I can't remember what the name of all of them were, but I remember that there was about 4 or 5 games on the demo disc. And on that disc was Dead or Alive 2, in which you could play as Ayani, the purple hair girl right now, Kasumi, who you've probably seen once or twice throughout this video. There's a brunette in black. Yeah, right here. She's using blue, but I have her in the black costume because I think black and gold was better. And I want to say Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden, just because it's Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden. And up until that point, he'd been seen in any thing outside of the Dead or Alive fighting game series. So there's something for the Ninja Gaiden fans. And I want to say he gained enough popularity from those games, or he had enough of a resurgence in popularity that they brought back the series in the vein of the new Ninja Gaiden series, which is a 3D hack and slash instead of the 2D platformers they were back on the NES and the SNES. I want to say. I never played them. I really do, though. I really want to play the older games because I hear they are difficult to play. But yeah, on the demo this was Dead or Alive. The first level of Sonic Adventure, Emerald Coast, that was on there as well. There was another game that, for the life of me, I would recognize it if I saw it, but I do not remember the game's title at all. I don't remember the game title at all. I remember that you played as this character who had this really strange had this really strange parachute mechanic. He was dressed in all black, and the parachute essentially looked like a bunch of rivers that would just pop out of his back and then fold back in. And I can't remember for the life of me what that game was called. If anybody knows it, I would appreciate you guys putting it in the comments below. And there was one other, but I never played it. Either I never played it, or I only touched it once and completely forgot about it. But either way, I was introduced to Dead or Alive on the Sega Dreamcast, and it was Dead or Alive 2. And I remember having a blast with that game. Like every time I would put that demo disc in, I would either play the first level of Sonic Adventure, or I would just play around with the characters in Dead or Alive. And more times than not, I would play Dead or Alive. Now, Dead or Alive has a very beginner-friendly fighting system. It really does, at least in my opinion anyway. Because the movements, for one thing, are very fluid. They have always been very, very fluid, and they just increase the quality of that particular aspect of the game as the series droned on. Like, as you're watching this right now, you'll probably notice that the fighting, the movements, the character animations is all very fluid and is very much a spectacle to watch. And yeah, I enjoy it for that. I enjoy it for that matter because if you're really good at Dead or Alive, or if you're just watching a tournament of Dead or Alive done professionally, which I am not professional in the slightest, so that's why I'm using the computers right now to really illustrate some of the points. It is just a spectacle to watch. You know, it's just very amazing to watch. But yeah, it's very simple. It honestly plays a lot more like a hack and slash than anything else, which I'm not surprised given that it's Team Ninja. They also developed the Ninja Gaiden games as well. But to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, I think the most apt example to use would be Bayonetta's 1 and 2, because a lot of the combos you do in that game, excuse me, like I said, this is going to be very informal, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of keeping the flubs and whatnot to a minimum. I'm going to try to, but not going to be as obsessive about it as I am inside the Let's Plays. But if you play Bayonetta, or Devil May Cry for that matter, because the same developer, his name is Hideki Kamiya, if memory serves correctly. Yeah, it's Hideki Kamiya. I should know this guy because he creates some of my favorite fighting games. Some of my favorite action games ever. He just creates a lot of them. But like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Ninja Gaiden, and to some extent God of War. Dead or Alive plays a lot like those games in the sense that you only use 2 real buttons to fight. You use the Y button, which is punch. I should also mention right now that I'm playing this on the 360. You use the B button to kick. You use the A button to counter, which would be the X button on the PlayStation. And if you play PlayStation for the most part, this is also available on the PlayStation, and it's the same positioning on the face buttons. You just gotta remember that it's, O instead of B, triangle instead of Y, that kind of thing. And then you have the X button for your grabs. Now I changed my button setup up so that the X button is actually the counter and the A button is the grab, because that just seems more logical to me. But in any event, excuse me, I'm gonna cut that. But in any event, the combat system is very simple. It's not a lot of turns. Like if you played Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, and I guess to some extent Blaze Blue. I'm not going to mention Tekken because I haven't played enough Tekken to make a valid statement on that, and I like to avoid making general assumptions based off of games I have not played or have any kind of extensive experience with it, either viewing the gameplay or listening to a wide, and I mean a wide range of people's opinions based upon that game. I'd rather not talk about that. Or talk about a subject that I'm not familiar with, so I'm going to leave Tekken out of that one. But if you play Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, and Street Fighter, you'll know that a lot of the combos are turn-based combos. Like you'll do like you'll turn the analog stick one direction, you do a full rotation, half rotation, quarter rotation. You might input that sequence like 3 times, and then do like another one, and then do Y, and that would do just like one move. Well, in this game, a lot of those complicated combos, with the exception of energy-based projectiles, I don't think I don't think Dead or Alive has any characters that shoot energy beams out as their combos. But no, as a part of one of their combos. But it's mostly pause combos. Like think Bayonetta, you'll do like one punch, and then you'll pause, and you do a kick, you'll pause again, and you do another punch, and that would be like a strong 3-hit combo. or you can do a rapid input sequence, and that would be a rapid input combo. But the one thing that I think sets Dead or Alive apart from a lot of fighting games is that when it comes to fighting games, you kind of have to wait. Like when it comes to combos and whatnot, you will be put in a position where your opponent will have you on the ropes and will just combo lock the crap out of you. I mean, just combo lock the crap out of you. And they have specific moves within those games. I'm using Soul Calibur as an example. Like you'll hit like a specific button combination will give you like a small frame of this is where you can combo, and this is like an all combo move. In Soul Calibur, you have like 3 or 4 moves that do that, and they usually just it's usually just like either 3 or 4 like that per character, or it's 2, like 1 or 2 per character, because it covers like one part of the character's hitbox, and another one covers another part of it. And I want to say most fighting games do that. Like I know Street Fighter 3 introduced a parry system, and I haven't had much experience with Street Fighter 3, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering this or getting this completely wrong, but I believe it's if you counter at the right moment, or if you hit the attack button at the right moment, you do like a parry move. Well, Dead or Alive's a little bit different than that. They actually have a button completely dedicated to counters. Now, I know what you're saying. That's not very skill-based. And as some of you who are thinking that probably might also think, well, that would make sense if the game is very beginner-friendly. Well, let me first explain that to you. The counter system in Dead or Alive is very simple, and it's very simple. It's very easy to understand. You have your multiple kind of hits. You have your high hits, your low hits, and your medium hits. And the punch and kick buttons do that. And whereas games like Street Fighter, I'm using Street Fighter as an example, but I know for a fact that Street Fighter, and I want to say Tekken does this as well, because while I'm not going to talk about Tekken too much, I do have enough to remember that Tekken has a button specifically dedicated to each level of punch. You have one button for high, one button for low, one button for medium. Same thing for Street Fighter, if memory serves correct. I don't remember much about Mortal Kombat. I'm not certain. I want to say it's still the same for that. I have not played Mortal Kombat since the PlayStation, the original PlayStation. So that gives you a good frame of reference. No, wait, I take that back. I played a little bit of 9, but I remember that I couldn't play too much of it because that was at the point where like the Sony system got hacked or something, and the console was lagging and eventually bricked itself, so I couldn't really play it much. Like it was lagging so hard that it was like watching a rotoscope. I think it's a rotoscope. Yeah, I think a rotoscope is the one I'm thinking about. It's the one where it's like one frame here, one frame here, one frame here, and then you spin it around in like a mirror section. It's like a moving picture. By the way, sorry if I'm talking real fast. I'm going to work on that. So to repeat myself, I'm thinking rotoscope. I want to say that's the one where it's like you have one frame here, one frame here, one frame here, one frame here. You just line those frames up and then you spin it, and it looks like a moving picture, but it's actually just one frame. It's just like one image of the same thing being taken in different positions, and it looks like a moving picture. That's what it looked like when I tried to play Mortal Kombat 9. Suffice it to say, by the time we got that fixed, I just didn't care to play it anymore. So yeah, Mortal Kombat might not have the dedicated high button, low button, kicks, and whatnot. This, in Dead or Alive, you do have to use directional inputs to do it, so you're doing a lot of multitasking, I would say, in terms of controller. You're not just like going like hit one here, hit one here, hit one here, and then that's the button combination. It's hit one here, and you just kind of rotate around a bit. So it's a lot of directional inputs. It's directional, not rotating. So when you put it like that, you understand that, well, the counter system is going to be based around that. You have effectively six positions in which you can use the counter button in. Now, this isn't necessarily a guarantee that, oh, if you're in the middle of like a long combo string, someone's going to hit the counter button and immediately get out of it and break your stride. That is not the case. As a matter of fact, it's far from it. You have to be very frame precise with it, and you have to understand. You have to be able to see exactly where the hit's coming from. You have to be able to discern if it's a high hit or a low hit, and then you have to hit the directional input that corresponds with it being a punch or a kick. I want to say kicks you have to hold back, like the opposite direction of the kick, over the opponent's position, and then you hit the counter button. If it's a punch, you hold towards the opponent and you hit the counter button. And you have to hit the appropriate counter position, or else you're just going to continue getting hit. You may have seen it a couple of times here on the screen because some of the characters will randomly pause during getting comboed and just kind of like stutter a bit, but it looks like they're jutting their hands out. That's the counter animation. That's the counter position. And if it connects off like right there, Kasumi just did it, and then Brad just did it right there. That's the counter system. That's the counter system in effect, and they countered in different positions. That is the computer calculating and understanding that because it's a spectator match and I'm just simply watching these characters fight. Yeah, go figure, alright? Laziest commentary ever. But it does make it a little bit easier because then I can commentate a little bit more effectively in my case, which I have not picked up Dead or Alive in a minute, so I am forgetting a good number of my tricks I would use to pull off a lot of these combos. But it's interesting to note that that's how that works, you know. Now that I've essentially gotten that out the way, I want to go ahead and discuss why I like Dead or Alive so much. And outside of the user-friendly interface and the fact that it feels like a hack and slash kind of 3D fighter, which is really rewarding because Team Ninja, and I'll get to that in a second. No, and I'll get to Team Ninja as a company thing in a second here. Team Ninja does some technically solid games. Like objectively, they are solid games. They do a lot of work to refine it, and the characters each feel different enough so that way when you do have characters with repeat fighting styles, they are different enough so that way it's not like a case of, for instance, Smash Bros, where you have Falco and Fox, and the only real difference between the two is that Falco jumps higher and Fox runs faster, and how their blasters work, and like one other thing I want to say, which is like essentially the only real difference between Fox and Falco is how high one jumps and how fast or slow one of their specials move. You know, the amount of distance you get from it. That's really the only difference, because outside of that, moveset wise, is aesthetically the exact same thing, you know. In this game, every character has a distinct fighting style. Like even, for instance, Brad's the character Jumper Vista. I partnered him up with Elliot. Elliot actually learns canonically from a character in this game called Genfu, and they have a similar fighting style, but it's different enough that you really can't just go, I'm gonna pick up Elliot. Okay, I wanna play Genfu. This should be simple. No, it's not that simple. At least from what I'm understanding. I'll also mention this is Dead or Alive 5 Last Round, and they have a few guest characters in here from the Virtual Fighter series, which I want to say is actually the fighter series that Dead or Alive draws inspiration from, if I remember correctly. And one of the characters, Akira, actually has a similar fighting style to, actually has the exact same fighting style to the character Kokoro, but it is varied enough that it's varied enough that you won't be able to pick up Kokoro and then pick up Akira and go, I'm an expert with both these characters. It's not that vain. You understand what I'm saying? So what I've talked about so far, the gameplay's beginner friendly, but still refined enough. That if you master it, you can do some insane stuff. It's still very skill based. Character animations are fluid and just a joy to watch. Each character feels different and unique. Also, the character designs are really cool. Excuse me. I love the character designs in Dead or Alive. The costumes, the aesthetic, it's just a joy to watch. They're just so interesting to just look at, you know? And yes, I understand that some people are probably snickering right now inside the comments. I will get to that in a second, because I do very well know the reputation that Dead or Alive gets. I'm not about to just skim past that, because if I'm going to talk about this game, I'm going to talk about it in its entirety. And I'm going to try to wrap up here pretty soon, because this has gone on a little bit longer than I would have liked. But yeah, now where do I get in terms of the downsides of Dead or Alive? Well, the main downside is pretty much a pitfall that pretty much all fighting games stem from. In every fighting game, you have a story mode. You have stories, they have written stories into the games, and they've been that way for a very, very long time, I want to say. And some are interesting, some are lackluster, and as games have progressed and a lot more space has become available for the games, and they've been able to cram more into it in terms of content, stories have gotten longer and more involved. Dead or Alive is kind of like Street Fighter in the sense that you have like a main overarching story for this game as a whole. Like, for instance, the main overarching thing for Street Fighter is that, well, M. Bison's trying, if I remember correctly, it's either M. Bison or Akuma. Honestly, I haven't kept up with Street Fighter in a long time. Most of this is coming from the movies I've watched, but I have no reason to doubt that it's any different than inside the games. It's pretty much M. Bison, the bad guy, Chun-Li is trying to stop him, and Ryu is in the middle of his schemes in one way or another. You know, Ryu is involved in one way or another. In this game, it's kind of the same. You have Kasumi here and Ayane. They're both main players of the story. Ryu Hayabusa, strangely enough, actually has a place inside the story because he's friends with with Hayate, another ninja inside this game. The story could use a little bit of work, but thankfully, as of Dead or Alive Dimensions, which is a handheld port of the first one, the first Dead or Alive, second Dead or Alive, third Dead or Alive, and the fourth Dead or Alive, as all the stories neatly compacted into one little handheld experience. They've gotten a little bit more coherent with it, and the storytelling has gotten better. Now, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily amazing, but it's definitely good enough to where I'm pretty much going, okay, even though the story is very generic, it's a very generic story. I'm not even going to lie. Like, if you've seen the Dead or Alive movie, it's essentially that storyline, except there's a lot more at stake, and is a much more elaborate plan than what was laid out inside that movie. But the story is still interesting enough that I am still focused, and I would like to see it, because for one thing, each of the characters actually has a pretty interesting motivation. If you follow them all the way from the beginning of the series into the now. Some are very, very, very simple motivations, but they're still interesting enough that you don't really feel like, oh, I don't really see the reason why I shouldn't follow this character. And if there are instances of them, they're like few and far between. So, I've got all the positives of why I like it, right? Gameplay, characters, animation, story still needs a little bit of work. But hey, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. Now to get to the main thing, and I'm going to make this brief. Because I think at this point everybody knows the reputation. Team Ninja gets hit with a reputation of being a very perverted game developer. And if you look at the evidence out there, I mean, if you just Google Dead or Alive commercials, I would not be surprised. If you guys came to that conclusion yourself. Like, for those of you who don't have experience with the series, if you just look at the commercials, you will probably, and I think I'm mumbling again, if you guys are new to the series and have not been following it, if you just went on YouTube and looked up the Dead or Alive commercials, as well as some of the features that are put into the Dead or Alive and Ninja Gaiden games, I would not be surprised if you came to that conclusion yourself. But here's the thing. Most of that is played for a joke. Like, most of that is played straight as a joke. And really the reputation, from what I can tell, is really only viewed in a negative light. And I'm speaking from a purely Western point of view. In the West, it's a very big issue. More so nowadays, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm not. I'm saying this right now. I'm not getting into all those political stuff right now. Maybe later down the road. But for right now, I'm keeping it short, because if I went on that tangent, you'd be here even longer. But here's the thing, Team Ninja knows their reputation. They know exactly what they're known for. They understand exactly how they are viewed in the West. And they play it as a joke. Like for instance, the majority of the criticism comes from a side series of Dead or Alive games called Dead or Alive Extreme. Essentially, it's every female character inside this game on a beach playing volleyball, and the main goal is just, well, the main goal is to have a vacation, but you just play games and you buy costumes. That's pretty much it. It's essentially, to give a close enough comparison, it's like Mario Party, but with barely a ninth of the mini games. You know what I'm saying? And that's where the reputation comes from. Mostly from Dead or Alive Extreme 2, because they touted breast physics as like a big selling point, but I think everyone missed it. That it was a joke. Like, yeah, the breast physics in that game are redonkulous. Then yes, I do own both games. I'm not even going to lie about that. The breast physics are a joke, and they play it as a joke. Heck, even in Dead or Alive 5, they have a breast physics option. And in that option, you have it where you can turn it off. So if you get offended by bouncing breasts, you can just turn it off and not deal with it. You can put it on normal if you want, I guess, what is relatively normal. I honestly would not know, because frankly, I just don't care. And then you have the DOA physics, which is essentially video game physics. It's exaggerated. Everything's exaggerated out the wazoo, So if you want to laugh, there you go. They know it. They play it as a joke, and I appreciate that, because it's really hard to laugh at yourself, especially if you have a reputation that's less than positive. It's also the main reason why people got upset about when they heard that Metroid fans, and I speak as a Metroid fan myself. I love the Metroid Prime series. That's my favorite series of games. People got a little iffy about letting Team Ninja make a game for arguably one of the most respected female characters in video games. And then the game came out, and it turns out the gameplay wasn't that bad, and the main thing that they were worried about actually didn't arise from Team Ninja. It actually arose from the series creator Sakamoto. So look who got egg on their face. I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those guys who was like, maybe Team Ninja shouldn't really work on Other End, because their stories, while serviceable, aren't really Metroid level serviceable. And they haven't really made any games that would imply that they'd be good at a Metroid style game. If you play Metroid, it's very backtrack heavy. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Essentially what I'm getting at here is that the main criticism leveled at Team Ninja comes from mostly a side series of games that is played for a joke. It's literally, we have like a month and nothing to do. Why not make a joke game? And they did. The thing is that in the West, we take that stuff kind of seriously, because that's just how our culture is. Show any amount of skin and people lose their freaking minds. In the East, not so much. And I took a few classes on Japanese culture in college, so I pretty much know for a fact that when it comes to sexuality and the human body, they don't care, because it's just a thing. It happens. Everyone has a body, everyone's naked, and everyone's made differently. Who cares? And the West is much more intricate, and I'll probably get into that at a later point because this video is going on long enough as it is, and I'm going to start wrapping it up now. So maybe at a later date I'll come back to Dead or Alive and I'll talk about that. But for right now, suffice it to say that I feel like when it comes to people's views on Dead or Alive, it's mostly from a, oh, look at hearsay, look at the aesthetic value. It's pretty much taking it at the aesthetic value and then just kind of flinching at it for whatever reason. That's pretty much how it is, at least in terms of the West. And I highly encourage you guys to, if you have a passing interest in the Dead or Alive series, I do encourage you to pick up the Dead or Alive games, or at least Dead or Alive 5, because that's the one that's out right now. I doubt they're ever going to do a remaster, and I don't think they've re-released the previous games on as downloads on the various online services. You can probably order it off Amazon or eBay if you look hard enough, but what are you gonna do? If you have a DS, I recommend getting the Dimensions port, because that's essentially the first series of games condensed and more concentrated, so there's a more flowing narrative leading into this game. So if you're interested in Dead or Alive, I recommend giving it a pick up. I promise you won't. I promise you you'll at the very least won't feel like you've wasted your money on it. Especially since you can probably pick it up fairly cheap nowadays. I enjoy Dead or Alive, and I look forward to what's coming out next. And yeah, that's about it. Leave your comments below. I'm actually very interested in seeing people's experience with Dead or Alive. Like, if you have any experience with it, if you have a passing interest in it, or if you're just one of those guys who've seen Dead or Alive and just like, this ain't my thing. I'd like to hear why. I'd like to hear why it gripped you, or why it didn't grip you, or why it why you have an interest in it but haven't played it, or why you don't have an interest in it and why you haven't played it. Leave that down below. Tell me what you think about this video series. If you would like to see more of this come from me, then I will definitely keep that in mind. In the meantime, I have been the Devious Wolf, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.